Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So yesterday I read an article on the Roots about the FBI targeting so-called black identity extremists. Now, the Roots article cited another article in foreignpolicy.com. I went and read that article. I'll include a link to that article so that you can read it for yourself. But it talked about the timing of the FBI issuing this report. It says that it was leading up to the days before that Charlottesville protest. You know, the protest in Charlottesville, Virginia, where you had these white extremists protesting against the possible removal of a Robert E. Lee statue. These people engaged in all kinds of acts of violence. Black people were beaten at that rally. A white woman was killed by white supremacists. But yet the government decided, instead of focusing on these groups that actually pose a threat to the government, they want to attack and focus on black so-called identity extremists. You know, despite the fact that there are all these reports citing that these white supremacists pose a greater threat to the American people than any other group of people, a greater threat than these Middle Eastern terrorists or foreign-born terrorists. These white supremacists have a long history of terrorism, but yet and still the government agencies are no longer going to focus their resources on these white supremacists. They're going to focus solely on these foreign groups, and now they are focusing on so-called black identity extremists. And this tells you about the government's priorities under Donald Trump. And this is another reminder of just how important elections are. I mean, you had some of these foolish Negroes telling you and me that, you know, it's not an election, it's a selection, you know, it's an illusion of inclusion. But now we're seeing the results of Donald Trump being elected president. This man has de-emphasized dealing with white supremacists despite the long history of lynchings, bombings, and killings at the hands of these white supremacists, not just in the civil rights days, but even today. Despite that, he wants to focus on black people, targeting black people who are simply speaking out against injustice in this society, simply standing up to police brutality. That's what he wants to focus on, black people. And this is a part of a long history in this country. So the FBI in this report declared that black identity extremists pose a growing premeditated threat to law enforcement. And they cited the example of Michael Brown, who was killed in Ferguson, and how that inspired protests around the country. And that inspired the whole Black Lives Matter movement. That's when the Black Lives Matter movement really picked up. But these types of labels, you know, them labeling black activists as black identity extremists and them targeting black activists, this is nothing new. This is a part of a long history of suppression and repression in this country. It's a long history of oppression. That's what it is. All we have to do is look back to the counterintelligence program under J. Edgar Hoover, a program that lasted for decades, beginning with people like Marcus Garvey being targeted by the federal government. And, you know, this is not something theoretical. I mean, a lot of black activists were arrested and killed under the counterintelligence program. I mean, you had people like Malcolm X killed, you had people like Martin Luther King killed, people like Medgar Evers killed, you know, people like Fred Hampton killed by the government simply for trying to fight against racism, simply for trying to fight for basic human rights like voting rights and the right to be treated as an equal human being in this society. For that, black people were framed, black people were killed, black people were discredited and destroyed under this counterintelligence program. Now, they talked about how, before I go on to that point, let me just say this. And we can expect that with this whole new program, you know, this whole program of focusing on these so-called black identity extremists, we can expect for black organizations to be targeted. We can expect for black leaders to be arrested. We can expect for black leaders to even be killed in this day and time. We can expect that there will be agent provocateurs amongst us. People who encourage the movement to engage in illegal activity in order to discredit the movement, in order to neutralize the movement. We can expect that. We can expect there to be spies amongst us reporting to the federal government and, providing damaging information on organizations and individuals. We can expect that. That's the history. When they label black groups, they can kill black groups. When they label black people, they can kill black people. And that's what we're waking up to. That's the reality right now. You know, it was a spy, a black man, who gave the FBI and the police the blueprint to Fred Hampton's apartment so the police could move in there and assassinate that brother. And I wouldn't be surprised if things like that don't occur now. So, in this article, they also talked about how these incidents of police brutality are feeding this movement, this so-called black identity extremist movement. And, first of all, that whole term is fake. The term black identity extremists, that's not anything real. I've never heard in all my years as an activist, as a blogger, as a civil rights attorney, I've never heard any black organization refer to themselves as a black identity organization or a part of a black identity movement. But there are white groups that use that language. They call themselves white identity groups and all that kind of stuff. So this is a made-up term designed to terrorize the people and scare people into action against the movement. So that's one thing that has to be addressed. But in terms of, these police brutality incidents fueling the movement, it is an inspiration. I mean, it does wake people up. Every time there's a police killing, it wakes the people up to the reality that this system is a racist system. It is a white supremacist system. It is a system that doesn't give a damn about black lives and black people. So that realization is waking people up. That realization is getting people engaged, getting people involved, getting people active. And I'm glad that our people are waking up, because shortly after the election of Barack Obama, they had been feeding us this lie that somehow we are post-racial society, that somehow we have overcome racism, that somehow we are a raceless society and we're all equal and this and that. And every day, our people are reminded with each one of these police brutality incidents, with each one of these killings, we are reminded of how that is just a lie, how it is just a sham, how it is just a fraud. And our people are waking up and they're getting engaged, and that's a good thing. And I'm glad that our people are being involved. And in this article, it talks about how the police, the FBI actually went to Deray McKesson's house. He's one of the prominent figures in the Black Lives Matter movement, and they interrogated him. And we can expect more of this. We can expect to have visits from the FBI. We can expect to have them monitoring us, surveilling us, watching what we say and what we do and who we interact with. We can expect this. But, at the same time, some of these people, some of these so-called black activists don't pose any kind of threat at all to the system. In fact, some of these people profit off of white supremacy. They love white supremacy because it means that they can be booked, for these speaking engagements. It means that they can rail against Donald Trump, et cetera, and et cetera. I mean, a lot of these people are the same people that told you and me not to vote. These people aren't involved in any kind of organizations fighting for black liberation. These people are not participating in any kind of protests or any kind of lawsuits to change the situation here in America. These people are doing absolutely nothing, so they don't pose any kind of threat. It's the people who are actually trying to change policy that pose a threat. It's the people who are actually participating in marches. It's the people who are actually participating in political activism, actually running candidates for office to change policy. Those are the people that are making a difference. Those are the people that this system is afraid of. It's the people that actually get off of their asses, get out of their houses and put their bodies in the street for the struggle. The people who actually take up arms to defend themselves and to defend their communities, those are the people that pose a threat, not these people who are Black Power entertainers. So, I just had to get that off my chest because, this label, this Black Identity Extremist label is very dangerous, and they're going to target all these different groups. And some of these people aren't even worthy of being targeted. Most of them, none of us should be targeted, period. But some of these people don't pose any kind of threat to the system or racism at all. But there are genuine activists who are actually fighting to change this society. Now, in this report, they cited the example of Micah Johnson. They said he was influenced by this Black identity extremism. And they use him as an example to justify this surveillance or this whole program against so-called Black identity extremists. The fact of the matter is, when these white people commit atrocities, like when you had that guy Dylan Roof, and that's another example. I mean, Dylan Roof went into a church and killed 9 innocent people while they were praying, 9 innocent Black people. But yet and still, the FBI still hasn't prioritized investigating these white extremist groups. You had that white man at that protest in Charlottesville run over and kill a woman who was protesting against white supremacy. But yet and still, the government finds no need to prioritize investigating these white supremacist groups. When white people commit crimes like this guy Dylan Roof, they're just labeled as a lone wolf. Nobody else is drawn into that net. They don't go targeting white supremacists. They don't go targeting or profiling white men. But when it comes to Black people, when a Black person commits an act against these police, all of a sudden, they want to target an entire movement. When this guy, Micah Johnson, wasn't even a part of Black Lives Matter, he wasn't affiliated with any political Black organization. So why aren't they just calling him a lone wolf and leaving it at that? Just like they did with Dylan Roof, just like they did with this killer in Las Vegas who killed 58 people, injuring 500 people. And this article went on to talk about how law enforcement expects further attacks against police. And, I have to talk about that for a second. When you kill Black people and there is no justice, when they can't go to the court system to have justice rendered, when they can't even expect charges to be brought in these police killings, then that is going to breed violence. That is going to spark anger. And it is only a matter of time before you have more riots. It's only a matter of time before the people say enough is enough and take matters into their own hands and retaliate against these police who kill us with impunity. It's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time. It's only so much people can take. It's only so long that people can tolerate these police shooting us, killing us, choking us, hurting us, harassing us. It's only so much that people can take. It's only so much that people can take of prosecutors not willing to bring the cases against these police. It's only so much people can take when they bring these cases and there is a not guilty verdict time and time again, despite evidence on camera of these police murdering Black people. So those are my thoughts. Tell me what you think. Please rate, comment, and subscribe. Peace.